start here in the third row with Spencer Holbrook.
Brian, when you watched the film from last week, you talked about the red zone coaching scheme execution. What did you land on with that, and what do you feel like those are the correct little things that are pretty easy to get right?
Well, there was quite a few plays in the red zone. The first time we went down there, we had a power play that I feel like we got the right look that we were looking for. We didn't execute that very well, and quite honestly, on the second one, on the third, pass there, it was a kind of a 50-50 ball and man-to-man. I thought the protection was good, but that's playing in the red zone. And then on the last one, they did a good job sort of matching it. If you watch the play, you'll see CJ kind of league free in the flat, and if we can just keep our feet and keep our eyes up, maybe we see him there. And then as we got into the red zone a couple other times, we had a penalty, but quite honestly, there was one where we didn't motion the guy over. So to me, I thought schematically we were in decent shape. I'm critical of that. I just think we need to make sure that we're doing a better job as coaches, emphasizing the details to make sure it's executed better. Because ultimately, it's always the coach's responsibility.
Second row, Stefan.
Do you have any update on Bennett Christian, who's out last week?
Yeah, he should have a full week of practice this week and be ready to have a full game week next week.
Front row here, Austin Ward.
Right. A couple of times in the first 3 weeks, Tegra's come out, had the penalties on Saturday. How close is Ethan to, making that a more even split or pulling ahead right there? What's the evaluation at right guard right now?
Well, I thought Tegra did some better things on Saturday, but he did have the 2 penalties. So, we want, really high level of play from everybody. And it's good to have competition and know that, there's guys that, are fighting to get on the field. Tegra's played a lot of football around here. I do think he got better in this past game, but we all know what the expectation is. So we're going to keep pushing him to get to that level.
Going to back here, Dan Holt.
Your defensive tackle, you guys started Taiwan Malone over Edric Houston. Just what went into that decision, and kind of where do you see those 2 guys right now?
Yeah, as you saw, we rolled. We'll continue to roll guys. But I thought Taiwan took a step in the game. I thought he played well. He still has some things that I know Coach Johnson's working on to get him to play better. But he did some nice things in the game. I think he graded out. So that's big. As you know, we need that position, to continue to build depth and play at a high level. So, but Edric still played and Will still played. So we didn't have a ton of snaps on defense. We'll have a lot more here moving forward. So we're going to need everybody.
Going right here to Don Barrett.
Coach, the schedule's the schedule. Does the bye come at a good time in your mind, and what kind of things will you do this week, and how will you handle the weekend?
Yeah, I don't know when's a good time, bad time, but today we'll practice today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Take Friday and Saturday off, and then come back in Sunday, have our practice, and do a normal game week. That's something that I think is important to make sure we still continually stay on that schedule. We're going to work hard on fundamentals, on the areas that we need to get better at. We know the next 4 games are going to be a challenge. This will be our first conference game here. This will be our first road game, and 3 of the next 4 will be conference road games. So we have to prepare, to go on the road and play really, really good football. So we're going to look at the first 3 games, figure out the areas that we've done things well, where we need to get better at. Take a look at our self-scout tendencies that the opponents will be looking at on our end. And then I do think it's good, for these guys to get their legs back underneath them. August was a pretty physical month for us because we had to get ready in week 1. So it's really a combination of all those things.
With 5 touchdowns of 40 yards or more so far this season, does it become more tempting to take those shots with the success that you've had?
I love taking shots more than anybody, but it's not always there. Sometimes they're going to say, we're going to take away the shots. So when they're there, we'll be aggressive down the field, but that's why balance is so critical. Identifying what a defense is doing and then being able to take advantage of that. And we're looking to establish that. We're looking to establish how to, win the line of scrimmage, get the ball to our players in space, stretch the field horizontally and vertically. And you can't just break the huddle and look to launch it every play. It doesn't work that way. There's a lot of good coaches across the country, and they know who some of our skill players are. So we work hard on trying to find those situations and find creative ways to do that. I thought we did a decent job of that with one of the play designs, the one in particular to Jeremiah, where we brought Carnell in the backfield, the safety spun, so the middle field safety kind of found himself towards the line of scrimmage, tried to fight his way to get back. Brandon caught his attention, and we got behind him on that play. I thought the route to Carnell, was well executed. It was a really good route. We got the look we were looking for. So you don't always get that, and I think it's important for the quarterbacks to understand when we are trying to call a shot if it's there, because there's a lot of other shots that were called that, they were in a shell, and you got to check the ball down. And that's where, we'll keep calling shots if Julian or if Lincoln's in there can say, hey, if it's there, we're going to take it. If not, we're going to take the underneath stuff. And we called the shot, and it was a check down to Bo Jackson for 11 yards. I mean, that's good football right there. So we do have the speed to stretch it vertically, and when we can do that and make good decisions and stay on schedule, then we got a chance. So, but at the end of the day, the balance is what we're looking for, to identify what a defense is doing and then how we take advantage of that.
Second row middle, Beverly Maurice.
Ryan, things like managing a bye week and just keeping players fresh during the course of the season, travel, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
How much do the logistics like that affect the football these days, especially in a longer season with the 12-team playoff?
Yeah, I think it all adds up. I think everything matters. And to your point, how you handle these things. And we looked very closely at last year. Mick and I went through it yesterday, through every single day over the last or over these 2 weeks last year during this week, what we did on each day, how much in terms of total yards, high-speed yards, the workload, where we were coming into it at this point last year, where we were at this point, where we are at this point this year, and then individually some of the guys as well. And so, that's the science of it. And then there's also just the coach and the common sense in you, just to see your team and what you need and where you feel like you're going, what the schedule looks like moving forward, the opponents, the travel. So when we take all those things into consideration and want to make sure we have a fresh team. That's why I think when you look at how hard we practiced in August, the Texas game early on, I think it's going to be good here to get some good work in, but also have some of these days where they can get off their feet and be ready to go for a great 4-game run here.
Got time for two more. We'll go to Bill Rabinowitz, front center.
Bo Jackson's obviously made a splash so far. He just seems to have an explosiveness that's pretty rare. Yet after the game, you were asking about him, kind of, obviously, tamped it down a little bit. Is it a matter of just, okay, he's a freshman, let's just not get ahead of ourselves? Or how special do you think he is and can be?
Well, we were just talking about that as an offensive staff. It doesn't take a veteran coach to recognize talent when you see it. And Bo has talent. And we're going to keep bringing him along. It's a long season. And so, we're going to continue to give him the opportunities to prove that we can trust him with the ball in his hands. So far, he's done that. You can see his vision. You can see, his ability to catch the ball. He's got a lot of different skills. We're going to keep bringing him along. And the more he can take, the more we're going to give him. But I also think there's, just like any other position, there's a way you bring guys along. And, the number one thing is ball security, taking care of that football. And then there's pass protection, and then there's all those things. And he's checked these boxes. I mean, he's doing a nice job. So we're going to need everybody in that room. I think they're all a little bit different, which is unique. So it's our job to put them in a situation to be successful. But he's going to get plenty of carries this year.
Last question, front row, Joey Coffey.
Ryan, when you have taken those downfield shots with Julian, he hasn't missed in any of those opportunities on those.
Jeez.
What has he done well to be accurate in those situations?
Well, first off, you have to trust your footwork, and I think that is important when you're dealing with certain throws. You have to understand that there's a footwork that comes with it, especially when we're launching the ball so far down the field. There's a timing, and when you look at guys like Carnell and Jeremiah and some of the receivers we have, they can cover such so much distance in a short period of time. I think he does a nice job with the trajectory of the ball, because the more trajectory you have on a ball, the more margin of error you have. So actually the first go ball to Jeremiah, we usually like to throw that about 42 yards, what we call in a red line, which is an imaginary line, 4 yards from the boundary. And, on the red line, when you throw that ball, it's the wide receiver's job to make sure he's shielding off the defender and catching over his outside shoulder. When you throw the ball with a lot of air, you have the ability to maybe come back for it and things like that. So I think that was well done. On the two post throws, I thought both guys set on those angles, and he found the angle. But I think when you have such fast guys, you have to be able to get that ball out there, and you got to put a lot of height on it and let them adjust to it. And even the one to Jeremiah, like, when you put that ball in the air for him and he jumps up and he's so big and strong, he can kind of shield the defender with his body, which is what he did. I feel like the one to Carnell, he kind of dropped that one right in the basket. But a big part of it is your footwork, because when you're throwing it that far, think about when you're throwing a ball from one hash mark all the way to the red line. Let's just say it's 42 yards. Well, you also have to take the distance of where it is on the field. So you may be throwing a 60-yard ball with a lot of air, and that takes everything you have. So you have to have your feet in the ground to throw those balls. And a big part of that is how your footwork is, where you're hitching, how you're hitching, and that certainly helps. And then the last part is you never want to be late. If you're late throwing the ball down the field, it's going to be different. The other thing I would say too is when you're throwing a deep ball into the boundary as opposed to the field, they're two different throws, because the one of the boundary is a lot closer than the one of the field. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration. We spend a lot of time talking about them, working them, and making sure that we're on point, because we always say around here, when you take your shots, we got to hit them, and that separates the success of an offense. We try to be north of 50-50 on deep balls, but when we take them, we got to hit them.
All right, Coach, thank you.
Okay, thanks.